Welcome to the Information Security Forum podcast. I'm Tavia Gilbert, and I'm here with ISF Managing Director Steve Durbin, who's going to be talking to us about emerging technology, AI's role in business, a really interesting topic today. Business is making huge leaps forward with the help of artificial intelligence, or AI, and machine learning. Applications for these emerging technologies are growing across several disciplines, including health and medical, law enforcement, science. And even though we are still in the early days of the AI revolution, the technology is being used for everything from self-driving cars to cracking down on animal poaching. Steve, how do you see the role of AI in the future of business development?
I think artificial intelligence is something that, certainly from a technologist standpoint, is being very eagerly awaited. And I think that the reason for that is that it pulls together a number of different threads that we've been seeing over the past few years. We have this increase in the volume of data that's being created. We have an increase in the velocity, the speed at which we are creating that data. We have an increase in the way in which we're sharing all of that information. We also have an ever-increasing reliance on ensuring the integrity of that information and making sure that we're making the right decisions at the right time. That's built into the way in which an organization behaves and operates. It doesn't really matter, as you've mentioned, whether or not you happen to be, for instance, in the health sector or whether you happen to be in the retail sector. You're dependent upon data. And yet the challenge is always that there is so much of it. How do you get your arms around it? How do you make sure that you're making the right business decisions based on that information? The reality is that the sheer volume of it that is out there and the speed at which it moves have made that very, very difficult. Artificial intelligence, machine-to-machine communication, machine learning is really, whilst I don't think it's the overall solution, it is a potential solution to helping organizations deal with that particular issue. But I think we also have to be a little bit careful. Artificial intelligence is still in very early days, so it's in terms of its maturity, it's probably reaching adolescence. That means that we have to be aware of certainly what it's capable of doing, but we also have to make sure that from an organizational standpoint, we're putting in place the right safeguards. Because what we don't want to be doing is to rush off making business decisions based on flawed data. And so AI has a role to play, I think, in a number of different areas because it can pull together all of this different information. It can provide us with the necessary outputs that we need upon which to base our decisions. But we also need to be putting in place that human component, the human element that provides the check and the balance on all of this to make sure that the output is actually appropriate. We also need to be sharing that information very readily in terms of the way that AI is being used and how it's developing with other organizations in the same space and certainly I think with universities and leaders in this particular area. If we look at it from the pure security standpoint, then very many security leaders are really excited about what AI can bring. Why? Because trying to identify perhaps different insider patterns, the way in which threat actors might be able to get at our information, break through our defenses and so on. Those are all things that lend themselves very readily to an artificial intelligence, machine learning type environment because we can play out different scenarios. We can look at the ways in which we can perhaps anticipate some of those things. And that really is the holy grail from a security standpoint. We're trying to anticipate so that we can put in place means of either prevention or mitigation come the day that those sorts of things are happening. So I think AI has a role to play in a whole variety of different areas. The only caveat I always put around it is that it is an emerging technology and we need to treat it with the respect that we apply to all emerging technologies.
What do you see as the risk of organizations moving too quickly in implementing AI and machine learning for business? Can the pace be too rapid for company health?
I think that it's the same with most things, Tavia. I think we have to look at it within the overall context of what the organization is trying to do, the overall strategy that it has, and the risk profile that organization wishes to adopt going forward. You know, if you're a highly entrepreneurial, agile, aggressive organization, then AI certainly can help you to achieve some of those short-term objectives very, very quickly, of course, by providing you with the ability to analyze what-if scenarios and anticipate. From a marketeer's standpoint, AI provides me with a whole range of different ideas as to how I can understand better the end consumer, how I can anticipate some of their buying patterns and translate that into product differentiation, for instance, price point differentiation. And really, I think, as well, explore ways in which I can become much better embedded into my customer's psyche so that I'm the preferred choice. So, those are just some examples of the way in which we can use AI. But the caveat around all of that is that assumes that the data is correct. That assumes that there haven't been any flaws along the way. And this is the point, really, that I think is very important in this particular piece. We have to ensure that the integrity of information that we're both providing into a machine learning or an AI environment is assured. We also have to understand that it's that old adage, isn't it? Rubbish in, rubbish out. So if we are unsure of the integrity of the information that we're putting into that environment, we should also be unsure of the output. And so we need to be viewing, I think, the overall process from the perspective that says, just how comfortable am I with the information that is being used? Can I really ensure and assure the integrity of that data at all different stages as it goes through this process? And let's just apply that final review of it at the end stage that says, okay, am I sufficiently comfortable to be able to then take this business information forward and make solid business decisions based upon it? But the reality is, of course, that the more information we put into these machines, the better the quality of the data that we're going to get out of them, the better, therefore, of our decision making, and the better they will get in terms of identifying anomalies and providing us with the sort of information that will really allow us to explore whole areas that perhaps we haven't been able to up until now. And that applies both on the security side of the house, but also, very much more importantly, perhaps on the business side.
It's interesting to me that you're talking about artificial intelligence, which I think in the concept of maybe our popular culture fears AI replacing humans. But what you're telling me is that the human oversight of AI is imperative. You have to have a discerning person considering how AI works. As you've said, is the data good? Is the outcome realistic or appropriate? Or it's not actually replacing the human element. It's maybe refocusing it or giving humans something new to think about, but we're still needing the human psychology to oversee it.
I think that's right. I think for me, it's about how we as business leaders or individuals can learn to work with another tool that is immensely powerful, that enables us to consider all sorts of different possibilities that we wouldn't necessarily have had within an environment where the volume of information is really just too much for us otherwise to handle. I don't think we're at a point where we want to entirely hand that over to a machine and make decisions based on that. And this is an interesting dilemma, I think. You mentioned in the introduction there, driverless cars, for instance. What is the role of the human in all of that? Well, we can talk forever about the way in which, say, insurance might work in that space. We can talk about the impact it might have on our cities in terms of volumes and so on the environment from a pollution standpoint, because we'd be able to manage all of these things because we've, ideally, I suppose, in that scenario, removed the human element that says, actually, I want to get in my car and I want to drive as fast as I can from A to B. But at the same time, we have to consider that these things are not flawless, that there are challenges associated with them. And we really do need, I think, very much more experience, data, information in these areas before we can, with confidence, say that it is the right way to go, or indeed to tailor the way in which we're going to move forward. Because the thing that I think we're all very aware of from a security standpoint is that the more information you produce, the more data you produce, the more potential there is for either things to go wrong, information to be incorrect for a variety of different reasons. Maybe it's been tampered with. Maybe it's simply been incorrectly input. But these are all the sorts of things that the more volume, the greater the volume of information that you have, the more difficult it is to spot. And if we move entirely to an environment where AI is taking over, then I certainly would want to be assured that data integrity was top of everybody's lists of concerns.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's involved in weighing the benefits versus risk when it comes to implementing AI and machine learning in an organization? I think that this question comes right out of what you have just been saying, that it's not a guaranteed success. There are pitfalls to it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the same in fairness with every maturing technology. Or I described AI as being going through a phase of adolescence.
Adolescence, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very true. It is still learning. It thinks it can do things that perhaps it can't, or rather, individuals who are using it may give it a little bit more credit perhaps than it's due at the moment. I think that for me, any organisation that is looking to get into artificial intelligence, it doesn't actually matter whether you're talking about security or whether you're talking about using it for other business purposes. It's very important to start with a manageable sample. So look at how you might use artificial intelligence within the business. Understand, I think, what the business benefits are that you're expecting. What is it that is different that you're looking to achieve that you can't achieve otherwise? There could be a whole variety of different elements in there, of course. Understand that this is a trial. So view it with what I would call healthy skepticism. Mm-hmm. Look at how you might improve. But start small, start manageable. Make sure that you have, I think, that human intervention piece enabled. And then once you've started to prove the concept, you can begin to expand it out across your enterprise or across the different area in which you happen to be working, of which there are very many, of course, when it comes to artificial intelligence and machine learning.
This is all very sophisticated stuff, and it sounds like artificial intelligence and machine learning are finding their way into all corners of business. Depending on how a company manages emerging tech, it can have potentially harmful results or real benefits. For more information on how to gain oversight of managing emerging technology in the enterprise, please visit www.securityforum.org.